Emma Green had spent her entire life believing she understood silence. She grew up in quiet towns, worked in quiet rooms, and married a man who loved peaceful mornings. But after her husband, Daniel, passed away, she learned there are different kinds of silence, some comforting, some lonely, and some so heavy they sit on your chest like a weight you cannot lift. The house in coastal Oregon had never felt this still, not even on snowy nights or foggy mornings when the wind slipped through the trees. Now, even the walls seemed to hold their breath, as if waiting for someone who would never walk through the front door again. Every picture on the wall felt like a frozen moment she had no strength to touch. Every cup in the kitchen felt like it still belonged to Daniel. Emma's heart ached from memories she didn't know what to do with. But the hardest part was knowing she would eventually need to face Ethan, Daniel's 24-year-old son, her stepson, the boy she helped raise into a man. He had always loved his father fiercely. Their bond was something Emma never tried to compete with. She respected it, admired it. But now she worried he might look at her and see nothing but his father's absence. She feared the relationship was hanging by a thread, and she wasn't sure if she had the strength to repair it. For a whole week after the funeral, she barely slept. People came and went, neighbors, distant relatives, Daniel's old coworkers. But not Ethan. Not once. She assumed he needed space. Maybe he blamed her. Maybe he wanted nothing to do with the house his father once filled with laughter. These thoughts kept her awake at night, turning her stomach into knots she couldn't loosen. On the 7th night, just when she thought she couldn't take another hour of the emptiness, a knock came at her door. A soft, hesitant knock. Emma froze. Her hands trembled as she wiped her face and walked toward the living room. She hesitated before opening the door, as if afraid of what or whom might be standing on the other side. When she pulled it open, she found Ethan there. He stood under the porch light with his hood half wet from the drizzle, his shoulders tense, his breath visible in the cold air. His brown eyes, the same gentle shade as Daniel's, looked tired. Not angry, just lost. He looked like he had been carrying something too heavy for too long. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice thin from days of crying. "Are you okay?" His lips parted, but no words came out for a moment. He looked past her, into the house, as if he was unsure whether he belonged there anymore. "I didn't know where else to go," he finally said. His voice cracked. "Can I come in?" Emma stepped aside instantly, her heart pounding with relief. "Of course, always." He walked in carefully, almost timidly, as though the house might break under his feet. Emma closed the door behind him, trying to steady her breath. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ethan turned to her and said something that made her chest tighten. "It feels strange being here without him." Emma nodded, unable to speak. She motioned toward the kitchen. They sat across from each other at the table where Daniel used to read the morning newspaper. Emma's fingers traced the wood grain absently. Ethan rested his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped, his eyes fixed on the floor. The silence was thick. But it wasn't the same kind of silence that had filled the house for a week. This one felt like two hearts trying to understand each other in the same dark room. After several long seconds, Ethan finally spoke. "I keep thinking he'll walk through the door. Like this is all just some mistake." He exhaled shakily. "I walked past his workshop today. The lights were off, but I swear I heard something inside. Like he was in there. Like he'd call out to me." Emma felt something inside her break. She wanted to say the right thing, the comforting thing, but the truth was she felt exactly the same way. She had spent nights imagining she heard Daniel pouring coffee downstairs or humming while shaving. But admitting that felt too vulnerable, too raw. "I know," she whispered. "I feel that too." Ethan finally lifted his eyes to hers. The look he gave her wasn't the guarded, distant look she feared. It was open, honest, and full of pain he didn't know how to hold alone. "You're the only person who understands what he meant to me," Ethan said. "Everyone keeps giving me advice, telling me to stay strong, telling me he's in a better place. But you actually get it." His voice wavered. "And I don't want to lose you too." Emma's breath hitched. She hadn't expected that nod from him. Not now, not ever. She had always loved Ethan in a steady, soft way, the way you love someone you watched grow up. But hearing him say he didn't want to lose her felt like a thread tightening between them, pulling them closer in a way she couldn't explain. She reached across the table. It was instinctual. Simple human. Her hand rested gently over his dot. Ethan looked down at their hands, then up at her, his expression shifting into something unspoken, something warm and vulnerable, something that felt like a connection born from shared grief and unexpected closeness. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand slightly and held hers. Just held it. Not with romance, not with expectations, just with the kind of quiet need that comes from two people who suddenly realize they are no longer alone. For a moment, the house didn't feel empty. It felt full of emotion, of memory, of something neither of them dared to define. But the moment broke when Ethan pulled in a shaky breath and released her hand. "I should go," he murmured. "It's late." Emma nodded, even though she wanted him to stay for comfort, for company, for the simple presence that made the night feel less crushing. She walked him to the door, her heart beating too fast, her mind racing with thoughts she didn't want to examine too closely. As Ethan stepped onto the porch, he paused. The rain had softened into a light mist, catching the glow of the porch light. He turned back to her with a look that made her heartbeat flutter. "Emma," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you tomorrow." Her chest tightened. "Tell me now." He shook his head slowly. "I can't. Not yet. I need to say it right. It's important." Emma swallowed. "What is it about?" Ethan looked at her for a long, meaningful moment. His expression held something deep, something she wasn't sure she was ready to understand. "It might change everything," he said softly. Then he stepped back, pulled his hood over his head, and walked down the path into the misty night. Emma stood frozen in the doorway long after he was gone. She felt the cool breeze brushing her face, the sound of distant waves, and the quiet beat of her own heart. She didn't know why his words affected her the way they did. She didn't know why her chest felt warm, or why her breath came uneven, or why she replayed the moment his hand had held hers with a kind of ache she wasn't ready to name. All she knew was that for the first time in a week, the house didn't feel like a graveyard of memories. It felt like something had shifted, something real, something she couldn't ignore. And tomorrow, she would finally learn what Ethan had been holding in his heart. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the kitchen, painting the walls with warmth that Emma hadn't felt in a long time. She had barely slept, thinking about Ethan's words from the night before. What did he mean by something that could change everything? Her mind had replayed that brief, heavy moment countless times, imagining every possibility. Some made her uneasy, others made her heart beat faster. She told herself to stay calm, to not overthink. Yet curiosity and worry had a grip on her that she couldn't shake. Before she could even sip her morning coffee, there was a soft knock at the door. Emma hurried to open it, and there he was, Sithan, carrying a small wooden box. He held it carefully in both hands, like it contained something fragile, something sacred. Emma noticed the carvings on the lid, Daniel's initials neatly etched into the wood. A lump formed in her throat. Daniel had made that box long ago. She had never seen it before. "Emma," Ethan said, his voice quiet but steady. "I found these, and I think it's time you saw them." Emma's hand shook slightly as she took the box from him. "Found what?" she asked, though the curiosity in her voice was clear. Ethan opened the lid, revealing several folded letters, yellowed at the edges. Her fingers brushed against the old paper, and the scent of ink and time reached her. She pulled out the top letter, and the familiar handwriting stopped her heart for a moment. Daniel's handwriting. His words, frozen in ink, were meant for her. Words he had never spoken aloud. I didn't know he wrote these for me," Emma whispered, her voice catching. Ethan nodded. "He did. He never had the courage to give them directly, but he wanted you to have them, I think. He wanted you to know how he felt about you." Emma unfolded the letter and began to read. It spoke of love, of gratitude, of moments she had shared with Daniel that seemed small at the time but were deeply meaningful to him. Daniel wrote about how he had longed for her happiness, how he had wanted to see her smile every day, and how he had loved her in a way that went beyond words. Tears fell down her cheeks, and she pressed the paper to her chest, holding it close as if that alone could bring him back. Ethan watched quietly, his own emotions hidden behind a steady expression. He cleared his throat, hesitant, before speaking again. I didn't know how much I would need these letters too. I think he wanted us to have this connection even after he was gone. Emma's heart ached. She looked at Ethan and saw a man transformed by grief, by love, and by the weight of loss. He was still the young man she had watched grow. Yet now he carried the depth of someone who had lost the person he admired most. Then Ethan took a deep breath, and Emma sensed the moment she had been waiting for, the confession that he had promised himself he would not speak too soon. There's more, he said. Emma's eyebrows rose slightly. More. Yes, he said softly. Something I've been holding back. Something I need to tell you. Her chest tightened. What is it, Ethan? He looked down for a long moment, struggling with the words. Then he lifted his gaze, and she saw honesty, vulnerability, and something unexpected, longing. I promised Dad I would always take care of you, he said. But somewhere along the way, I realized I feel more. I can't explain it, and I don't want to replace him. But I care about you, Emma, more than I thought I could. Emma's heart raced. She had expected grief, sadness, perhaps anger, even awkwardness, but not this. Not the intensity, not the raw honesty, not the quiet weight behind every word. She felt a warmth rising in her chest that was confusing yet comforting. Her hand moved instinctively, touching his shoulder. I don't know what to say, she admitted softly. I feel connected to you too, Ethan. But it's complicated. We both loved the same man. Ethan nodded. His expression softened with relief and sadness all at once. I'm not asking for anything. I just couldn't hold it inside anymore. You needed to know. I needed to be honest with you. The room felt heavy and still, filled with the kind of quiet where truths can finally breathe. Emma felt tears on her cheeks again, but this time they were different. Not just from grief, but from the mixture of love, longing, and something new she hadn't expected. She sat down across from him, holding one of the letters in her hands. Daniel loved us both, she said. He brought us together in ways I never understood until now. And maybe that's why we feel this connection. Because of him. Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line, holding back more emotion. I can wait, he said finally. I'll wait for time, for clarity, for whatever this is meant to become. I'm willing to be patient. I don't want to ruin what we have by rushing anything. Emma's heart softened completely. She realized that in all the pain and confusion, there was something beautiful forming between them, not a replacement for Daniel. Not a betrayal, but a quiet, growing bond built on truth, shared grief, and mutual respect. She reached across the table, holding his hand again, but this time with more awareness, more understanding, more acceptance. I'm not going anywhere, she said softly. We'll figure this out together in time. And right now, I just want to be here with you. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, a gentle smile breaking through the sadness that had hung over him for so long. For the first time since the funeral, the air in the house felt lighter. The letters in the box, the words they contained. And Ethan's honesty had opened a new chapter. They spent hours reading the letters together, talking quietly about memories of Daniel, laughing softly at small stories that had once gone unnoticed. They shared moments of grief and moments of warmth. Each story from Daniel's past, each memory, each confession, made the bond between them feel more real, more human, more irreplaceable. The sun climbed higher and the warmth filled the room, casting long shadows that stretched across the floor. Emma looked at Ethan and noticed the lines of worry and sorrow slowly melting into something like hope. She realized that while Daniel's absence would always leave a mark, life was continuing. It was finding its way back into their hearts in unexpected ways. At some point, neither of them noticed how much time had passed. They were simply present with each other, sharing a space filled with memory, honesty, and quiet understanding. The conversation shifted from grief to future possibilities, how they would keep Daniel's memory alive, how they would support each other, how they could find happiness again without guilt or hesitation. Ethan finally stood, carrying the wooden box and letters carefully back to the shelf. "These belong to you," he said. "And to me, in a way, they remind us what we had and what we still have." Emma nodded, her eyes shining. "And they remind me that even after loss, love finds its way forward." He turned toward the door, and this time, the goodbye was different. There was no hesitation, no heaviness. Only a quiet acknowledgement of something beginning slowly, carefully, but undeniably. "Thank you," Ethan said softly, "for letting me be here, for understanding me, for everything." Emma smiled, her chest full. "You've always been here, Ethan. You just didn't know how much we could hold together until now." As he stepped outside into the gentle afternoon sun, Emma closed the door slowly, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't felt in weeks. The house no longer felt empty. The air was lighter, filled with warmth, possibility, and a quiet promise for the first time since Daniel's passing. She allowed herself to imagine a future, not just surviving the loss, but finding happiness again. A future where grief could coexist with hope, where love could evolve in unexpected ways, and where bonds could grow stronger through honesty, patience, and shared experience. And as Emma looked toward the horizon, the ocean glinting in the sunlight, she realized something profound. Life doesn't end with loss. Love doesn't end with loss. It simply changes, shifts, and finds new paths that sometimes lead to the people who are closest to us all along. Even if we never expected it, Ethan was standing there, just outside the door, looking back once before disappearing down the path. And Emma understood that whatever feelings had awakened between them were real. They were tender, complicated, emotional, and human, but most importantly, they were theirs to explore together in time, with care, and with love that didn't try to replace anyone, but honored what had come before. In that quiet, bright afternoon, with the letters safe on the shelf and memories alive in their hearts, Emma felt the first real smile return since Daniel's passing. A smile that was gentle, full of hope, and quietly certain that some bonds, forged in love and grief, can lead to unexpected beauty. The house was no longer just a place of memories. It was a place of beginnings. And for Emma and Ethan, the journey forward, slow, tender, and honest, had just begun.